Good morning. This is episode 8 of the Richard Thomas Writing Channel, In the World But Not of It. A little bit more about Randy Rainbow. Very interested in Randy Rainbow. By the way, everything that I have to say about Randy Rainbow does not come out of expertise. It's not even insight, really. I think it's imagination. So I've found out a little bit more about Randy Rainbow since the last time I talked about him. And at first, these facts made me think that I might want to change what I had to say. But in retrospect, I don't. Here's some things that I found out about Randy Rainbow. He was nominated for an Emmy Award based on work in his YouTube channel. I mean, I'm sure several people who might be listening or watching this, or both, know that, but I didn't. Okay, so he was nominated for you. I mentioned before he has been highly praised by top people in musical theater. Specifically Stephen Sondheim and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Okay, is a great lyricist, great singer. And some of my comments today is more about why he's 41 years old at this point in August of 2024, I believe. According to Celebrity Net Worth, he has a net worth of between $215,000 and $400,000. His stage show, his touring stage show, has really the tickets are very expensive on the secondary market, meaning he doesn't see that money. They're not the ticket prices. They're sold to people who really want to get in. So the question is that why? My first question is, why doesn't Randy Rainbow? Why doesn't he have a Broadway career? This guy should be writing, directing, and starring in cutting edge Broadway musical theater. It seems he's an enormous talent, as I've said many times. Well, here's how I imagine it. Randy Rainbow, he says his mother raised the gayest boy on Long Island. He is very, as I say, unapologetically gay. I mean, he's very directly gay. There's nothing, he has no repression related to his gay nature. I don't think that keeps him off of Broadway. I mean, Broadway is a place that's always been welcoming to gay people. And the moment that we are in time for much of this country is beyond that kind of demographic discrimination. So I don't think it's that. I think his origin story is in that his mother let him dress up as Snow White when he was like 9 years old or something, and do a Snow White play in the backyard. She never discouraged anything about him. And the few things that I know about him is that he's gay, he's enormously talented, he's very smart, and this is the third thing that I don't think he fully mentions to himself. He's a moralist, and he's driven by a moral outrage. And I saw some interviews where he'd say, well, it would surprise people, but I'm not really political. I'm a performer, and I'm trying to entertain people. And that's basically what I'm doing. And he's trying to do that because he has a dream, or did, at least when he did that interview, that he wanted to be on Broadway. But he's better than Broadway. He's better. The reason why he's not on Broadway is because of that moral outrage. In that way, it's not political. I mean, he's really famously, of course, gone after gone after Trump. But really, at the end of the day, he's not being driven by politics. He's being driven by humanity. He's offended by humanity. Now, I think when he was a little kid, and he said he was the gayest, fattest, smartest guy in grammar school and junior high school, and was a target for the bullies. And I identified with that personally. I was all of those things except gay. So that is his origin story. That abuse that he took from bullying, and he even made a comment when he said it's working out for me now, but it wasn't great then. That is what made Randy Rainbow. Now, when you look at his great admirer and a great talent in his own right, Lin-Manuel Miranda, when you look at Hamilton, Michelle Obama said that was the greatest evening of theater that she had ever seen. And I saw Hamilton in Chicago. I thought it was great. But that makes it to Broadway. Because it has an optimism to it. And the whole idea of Hamilton as an immigrants do it better, and all that, but democracy, and it's the promise of the ideals of America. So it's a very true and positive a message. Randy Rainbow speaks to the darkness of America. He speaks about, not to, but about, he speaks about the America that has nothing to do with democracy, and has nothing to do with the blossoming of humanity, but is something that's ugly and murderous and dark. And he's outraged by it. And people love it. And people would love to see a Broadway show like that, but he'll never get to do that Broadway show. And the reason why is because of the gatekeepers. It's not because of the audience. The audience wants to hear it. But there are people that there are people that, the producers, the business people, they don't want to hear it, because they live in a compromised world. They want a Broadway producer, they want to vote for Obama, or I'm sure now Kamala Harris. They want to stand up for democracy. They want the bright vision of America, but they don't want to lose the ugly part of the audience. The bridge and tunnel crowd, the people coming in from Jersey and Philadelphia that are going to go to the theater and be told how lousy they are. There's all this discussion about how can 47% of America vote for Donald Trump? How can they accept this and what he's doing or whatever? Because they're lousy too. This is the thing which Randy Rainbow is saying. So I identify with this very much. I think I don't sing as well or write lyrics as well as he does, or perform or direct as well as he does. But in the moral outrage category, I identify with Randy Rainbow. I mean, if he would ever see this tape, he'd probably say, well, that's bullshit. That's not what my life was like. But anyway, I guess I'm not really talking about Randy Rainbow. I'm talking about how I imagine Randy Rainbow to be, as a way of imagining myself. Okay. And right now, I don't know how much of the screen is. Can I adjust this a little? No, I'm not showing a lot of the TV screen, so you're really not seeing it. But anyway, what I have playing on the TV right now, muted, of course, is is a documentary about Eugene O'Neill, and we're going to be we're going to be talking about that because one of the things that I was doing in August of 2023, the things I was doing a year ago, is I was looking at historical personalities, maybe occasionally a fictional personality, kind of like I'm looking at Randy Rainbow now, and and using it as a way to get to personal clarity. And before I get to the writing, there's another thing I want to say too, and this is in the live the question category. I'm not sure about this, but for me personally, I have no interest in aesthetics. I think this is a difference between me and Randy Rainbow. I mean, Randy Rainbow, I have an admiration. I mean, I have no interest in creating an an aesthetically pleasing thing myself. I admire it. I love the hell out of it. I mean, I think, uh, Randy Rainbow, you watch his videos and the musical quality of it is really, really first rate. And the production values of the videos are really, really first rate. I'm sure he'd be an extraordinary director uh, on Broadway or in film. But uh, I don't care. I mean, what I'm interested in is meaning. The only reason when I wrote the manuscripts that at first were attempts to be novels and then became memoirs, when I wrote those manuscripts, the thing that attracted me to even doing it was I thought this kind of writing will get me to a greater depth, and it's going to get me to more meaning. Now, I don't know if that's true at all. And the same thing with writing the essays on the blog. I'm basically I'm doing a rewrite with these videos. The videos are a rewrite, and they're being rewritten in talk. So what is that? So so I'm still I don't know. Do I ever want to write a narrative like that, or do I just want to sit here and talk about my experience in the world? I'll tell you, if I could get as deep as possible by doing what I'm doing now, that would be my choice. I never wanted to do anything except talk, really. All I wanted to do is have my say. If it was an influence, fine. If people didn't like it, fine. But at least I'd be clear on it and I could live my life. And that's basically what I've done. Okay, but now let's get to this writing. And this is from August 8th, 2023. I got my Oppenheimer Beach. I've come to Nashville to die. Of course, Oppenheimer Beach is the place in the Caribbean that Oppenheimer retreated to after he was unfairly made a pariah by the government science establishment, by being basically for the elimination of nuclear weapons after he basically, with the help of a bunch of other people, invented them. And the power structure didn't want to hear it. And the only way they could get rid of him was by shaming him. And he went into a kind of exile where he kept doing his work. And there's a part of me that has felt like that. Uh, but as we go on, I think I think I have more to say along that line, like the title here, "In the World, but Not of It." Um, and when I said I've come to Nashville to die, I mean, yeah, it's my Oppenheimer Beach. This is what I've settled into. Let's see here. And then, of course, I say I saw Bernie in a way I never did before. Well, that I did see him, and that's all I needed to know at that point, but it's not in the writing. And that came out later in the longer form piece, where he was really drawn as a character in the improv story manuscript. Uh, Then I say, that's all I got on next projects right now. I wait for further instructions from my subconscious. That's very much journal writing, but exactly where I'm at then, and it's where I'm at now. And the difference is a little bit that I understand now that that's always where I am. That's it. It's always wondering. When I taught improv classes back in the day, when I was in my 30s and at Second City, I had a line that I used in the classes where I said, improvisation is the art of not knowing what you're doing. And the thing is, you can't create and you can't really know yourself if you don't know yourself. And you can't really know what to do if you don't know what to do. Or else all you're going to do is repeat what you used to do. And I found that in a period in my life in my 50s where there were all these returns, all these reunions. And generally, my feeling was I thought that I was in exile. I thought I went into exile twice. Once in my 30s, and that lasted until I was 50, and then once in my late 50s, and that lasted to now. But it's different because what I learned the second time around was when I returned, those people, the people I worked with at Second City, the people I went to school with at Notre Dame, the lawyers that I studied with in law school, and even though these people were halfway new, but the teachers that I taught with at university, they hadn't changed. They stayed the same. So actually, what I thought was an exile was really a blessing. You know, it's really creation. Creation brings something new. It's about the new. It's not about the old. The old is a foundation. But this is anyway. And then here, I was wondering whether I was going to continue with the blog, which I ultimately decided to discontinue maybe a couple months later. But I said, I might post online again. I need to do it for balance. I think some people really read me out there, and I write my way to writing. If I write there, I think a book might break out. Well, I think that is the way. That is the way that it works. And I think right now, for example, these videos have a tiny audience, but maybe in time they'll have more. As a matter of fact, I'm not marketing for that, but I would expect that would happen. This is kind of fortune cookie. I don't like the aesthetics of this next line of my talk, but I think it's very true. Willie Nelson sang, "The life I love is making music with my friends." I think that's all there is. I think all the other music is shit. music to sell something, music to sell yourself. Uh, who cares? Now, this is a line that was definitely wrong. And my reflection on, or my imagination about Randy Rainbow sort of exposes I'm like a guy working in a little theater who knows he is destined for Broadway. I know I am not destined for Broadway. I don't, like I was just saying, I don't know where this is going, but it's definitely not Broadway or the metaphoric Broadway. The gatekeepers don't want me there because you know all my life when I've created, uh, people have walked out, and 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 I'm proud of that. I don't know who said it. So, but the famous there are some people I wish to offend. Uh, I love that quote. You know, you can Google it. I think I probably will later. There's some people I wish to offend, and there are some people I wish to encourage. There's a thing I wish to encourage. I think I think the idea is to be on the cutting edge of consciousness. I think humanity, the way humanity progresses, is not through conflict. It is through the elevation of consciousness. And the people whose consciousness is most elevated eventually becomes the future of mankind. I'm sure I'm repeating something that I said in an earlier video, but it's worth repeating. Martin Luther King, the arc of the universe is towards morality, or something like that. In other words, and that's a perfect example. Like the civil rights movement is a perfect example. The different attitudes that people have about diversity, race, gender, respect, very, very different than they were uh, in the 1970s, for example. It's a much different world in the way a lot of people think, and it's a much better world. And there are some people, we're facing it right now, but you don't hear it that much, which I mean, in and of itself is a sign of progress. Can a black woman be the president of the United States? When Shirley Chisholm was like, are you kidding? Forget it. Black and women, they only recently got the vote. There are so many people that don't even think about that. I don't think about it now, except I think, boy, it would be great if a black woman were president. I mean, that's one thing I think about. I've got step granddaughters, and I like the idea. It's a cleaning lady. Step granddaughters, I like the idea that they're seeing a woman really, really do something, follow her dream or whatever. I like that. So, but it's on that level that I care. But that's not even something. That's not even something that crossed my mind about Harris, or her gender, or her race. Okay, this next piece I'm not going to read, because this next piece was basically it was about Father Bill O'Malley was one of my high school teachers at McQuaid. He's a Jesuit priest back in Rochester a long time ago. He was a very flamboyant, charismatic teacher. He was he was very popular, but he was unpopular too. He was kind of he was kind of a polarizing figure. He didn't suffer fools lightly, and he got accused of I don't know what it was, some sort of anyway. Um, Long story short, I really don't want to get into it because, but he some accusation of not relating properly, being rude. I don't know if anything sexual was involved with it or not. I really don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it happened because I know the type of guy he was, and he was like a challenging teacher, and he had a good mind. If you were in high school and you got this guy, you were lucky, and he had a good heart. And he really, he wanted to. He said some things to me that I didn't like, at the time, and he said some things that meant a lot to me later. And then I even realized, later that the things that I didn't like had some wisdom to it. So he was that kind of guy. But that wasn't I wasn't writing about Bill O'Malley at all. There was in the first manuscript that I wrote, the memoir with the bad title, The Luck of Ricky Tommaso. A big part of it was about a good friend of mine who was close to O'Malley, and I hadn't thought about him in years, and we had quite a history together. And I was writing about that friendship, and I was writing with a hope that it could be rekindled. And he actually is an author, and he's the publisher of a small press. And I was thinking, man, wouldn't it be great to be published by a small press, or even if I wasn't published by the small press, to use the submission as a way of reconnecting with him and reconnecting the friendship, which was quite strong when we were young, and then had quite a had kind of a gruesome break to it. And his press was kind. They didn't accept my submission, but they were kind in the way that they spoke about it. And they wanted to encourage me as a writer. But he did not respond to any personal contact. And I realized that the memoir, The Luck of Ricky Tommaso, that whole section about Mooney, and it has Renee, the cleaning lady, comes in and out. The whole section about Mooney, it's not only about Mooney, but it's about connection with the world. And I learned some prosaic things about it. For example, connecting to go back. People grow in different directions. There's some people that that I don't think much of. I don't have any hard feelings or harsh judgments about this friend of mine. But I understand that his life went in a different direction. And I could understand why he just doesn't want to go in this direction. It's an investment that he doesn't want to make at this point. And I was kind of agnostic on the idea. I was just trying to see what would happen. But the whole part of that manuscript that dealt with the friendship with Mooney, and then a connected part where I was talking about submissions and defining myself as a writer who was going to send my writing around to these publishers, to be Randy Rainbow, never getting to Broadway, because that's what was going to happen. That's what was happening. oh, this is wonderful or whatever, but we're not going to do this because this is going to alienate people that are part of our readership. That's basically my take on it. So anyway, this whole thing about Bill O'Malley was really notes about Mooney. So when it came to my attention because the Jesuit provincial, the leader of the Jesuit community in the Northeast. So I think O'Malley was at Fordham, I think, at the end of his life. They kind of gave him an anonymous mass. They didn't, because he was controversial, they didn't give him any kind of honor at all when he died. And it was really kind of a cowardly and lousy thing to do. It was a corporate thing to do. He made tremendous contributions to the Jesuits, and they just sort of blew him off. And this friend of mine was trying to organize alumni of the school, of which I wasn't included in this group, but alumni of McQuaid, to try to figure out what to do. But he also was petitioning the Jesuit provincial. And that's a way that we've grown apart. That's something I would never do. I would never do that. I mean, my response is, fuck the provincial. If you want to honor Bill O'Malley, and he's certainly worthy of it, just honor him. Fuck the provincial and fuck their church. Because it's like the ideas of President Trump. Fuck Trump. It's the ideals of it. It's the highest part of it. It's the highest part of the highest aspect of what the thing is that matters. All this crummy little bullshit doesn't underneath it. That, talk about something not being aesthetic. What a mishmash that was. But I think you know what I'm talking about. Boy, I've already gone 32 minutes, and this is the piece. This is why Eugene O'Neill is up on the TV. But I think I'm going to have to stop here, because I'll just the name of the next piece I'm looking at, which, by the way, I thought was like, oh, now this is really a good piece. This is really a good piece. And now I look at it and I think, well, the writing of this it's not that good. But the work that's done in it is very good. Is very good. But something that I want to add to now. So I'll just give you the title of this piece, which we're going to do next time. August 21st, 2023. Jerry, Jerry who? Who was Jerry? Jerry, Andy, and Gene. Who's Jerry? Andy's Andy Warhol. Gene is Eugene O'Neill. Oh, Jerry's J.D. Salinger, of course. So Jerry, Andy, and Gene died of the world and come to birth from within. I'm going to lean in for that, because it's Jerry, Andy, and Gene died of the world and come to birth from within. J. Robert gets trapped behind. Oh shit, I want to do it. I don't care. So I want to do it because it makes sense to do it here. So, these are the type decisions that you make. So it's like, a half hour. So this one runs an hour. So what, or whatever it is. All right. There's a stop button. There's a fast forward. There's a rewind. People have agency. I don't have to worry about it. This is what makes sense to me in terms of working through this. Okay, I'll start reading this. Note, Jerry, Andy, and Gene all got farther than J. Robert Oppenheimer. It was so unfair that he didn't reach the promised land. The world persecuted him, using his frailties against him, infected him with self-doubt. He assumed his enemies' mean and ignorant perceptions of him. His Promethean clarity, insight, and imagination that perceived the nature of so much of creation did not extend to understanding himself or the motives of those who destroyed him. Powers of the world told him that he was a bad and failed man, and he believed it. They went after his fragile self-esteem, and he surrendered it. Artists and thinkers of genius can be gaslit as easily as any other person. Did I say I didn't like the writing here? I think that's a hell of a paragraph. I like that paragraph. Art and genius are divine qualities that inhabit some flesh and blood humans. Eternal power adjacent to vulnerability and mortality. Sadly, Oppenheimer was incapable of preserving his genius and advancing it to its highest and deepest levels. And I think that's true. Now, that's my response to the last scene in Oppenheimer where he goes in the 60s to the Johnson White House and he gets a medal. And it's basically the people who betrayed him and exiled him now praise him in an attempt to redeem themselves. That's how I read the scene. I think that's how Nolan wrote it. And I think it's what makes Oppenheimer an excellent movie. I mean, that scene makes it about something more than, the creation of the atomic bomb. And it's a culmination of everything that Nolan shows about this character. Okay. Onward with this. I think I get Salinger. He started out writing just as he pleased. That's how he began. He wrote just as he pleased. He was protected by the war. He wanted, quote, success. He was rejected, but he knew he was great. He hung in there, and the success that he achieved was phenomenal. But he kept his integrity, always honoring his own inspirations. He achieved what few do, success completely on his own terms. It wasn't calculated. He and times changed as a person, and times always do. In the 60s, his writing was poorly reviewed. He was being cast as a narcissistic has-been. It was only a moment. He could have fought back, and success would have come back around. You see, I'm giving these guys the Randy Rainbow treatment that I gave at the beginning of the video. But he saw through success itself. He realized he had always been motivated by fulfilling the capabilities of his own voice. His writing had been recognized by the world, and yet he knew there was something much more than even such deserved recognition. What profits a man if he gains the world and loses himself? He wrote every day after he left. I'm sure of it. He engaged the world when he felt like it. I think he was mostly happy and very much at peace. There's another level, another gear. O'Neill wrote his greatest plays after he won the Nobel Prize. He achieved the greatest acclaim and decided thereafter not to be published or produced. That all happened after his death. I don't think it was secrecy. I think it was privacy. He knew he could only do the monumental work ahead of him if he was separate from, in his case, the largely adoring distractions of the crowd. Andy Warhol was a shrewd outsider. He said that he himself was, quote, uninteresting. His work masqueraded as being impersonal. He loved Campbell tomato soup as a kid. It was all deeply personal. His work was at once ambiguous and ironic. He played the consumer, the star, and he actually wanted money and fame. But he also knew that they were illusions, and he used the appearance of his life in order to honor who he truly was. My adversaries saw me more clearly than I did myself. The fact that I did what I wanted put me in conflict with them. They wanted that power to say what was success, to demand that I work for their recognition, or more precisely, for the forces they unhappily worked for. The ironic satire, did I say that I thought this was bad? I think this is really good. The ironic satire of how to succeed, the writing. It's not just the insight. This came out as a good piece of writing. I think it's I don't know what page I'm on here. What page am I on? Page 19 of this manuscript. I think this is the first page 19, single spaced. I think this is the first writing that's in the manuscript. The ironic satire of how to succeed in business without really trying. In that satire, the hero cheerfully calculates ascendance to the hell at the top of that stairs. The charade and bullshit of it all. A game show life, winning ultimately worthless prizes for valueless, trivial activity. I think O'Neill and Salinger are stories of transformation, not in who they were, but in knowing who they were. They observed themselves and surgically separated themselves from all that was incompatible with their true nature that surrounded them. And that surgery took a long time. Just this thing. I think that's better. Okay. I think Warhol knew from the beginning he had the advantage of being discriminated against. This strange, perceived to be unattractive gay boy wasn't supposed to be successful. He cunningly put on a show of working so hard at the factory to honor their values. But in actuality, of course, his studio was famously called the factory, but in actuality, he lived completely on his own terms. The artist has no choice in the matter. He can only be who he is and do what he does. The struggle with the world only occurs while the artist isn't fully aware of his true nature. The Last Temptation of Christ is about such an artist. It's a story of liberation. The autobiography of Malcolm X is another such story. I always felt great peace and joy in what I was doing. The freedom and satisfaction inspired in others great resentment and great praise. The pages in Spolin, it's improvisation for the theater, Viola Spolin, that stay with me are the ones about avoiding approval and disapproval. Success is a distraction. Any action to win it is a dead end. All that matters is the life and the work. To change the world, one must be outside of it. The world finds you when it nearly catches up to your understanding. That's the world's job. The artist doesn't have to worry about it. I notice I have always been on the outside. Warhol knew he was and tricked the world. O'Neill and Salinger were fair-haired boys. who had to reject the world to get something more. Middle-class white boys of genius have to learn this. Those rejected from birth transcend it without a second thought as a matter of survival. Middle-class white boys have to figure out that they must let go. The world will carry them away with illusions of success and failure if they let it. I think that's really good. I think we're here, well into episode 8 here, and that's a piece of writing. That's really good. That's a keeper. And I just like to add in my talk annotations to the writing is that I think the facile misunderstanding of somebody like Salinger and O'Neill, it's like, oh, goodbye, cruel world. I just want to be alone. I don't want to deal with all the bullshit, all the pettiness and everything of the world. I don't think that's like that at all. I think O'Neill did it because he knew he had these great monumental works like Long Day's Journey into Night, The Iceman Cometh, what he wrote at the end of his life that weren't produced until after he died in the 50s. He knew that he had to do that. He knew he had to remove himself. And also, I think for much of that time, he wasn't well. So he knew he had to put all his energy in that, and that's what mattered to him. And that's why he went away. And that's why he told his wife, don't have this produced. Don't put it out anywhere. Because he was really writing it for God. In metaphorically, God. You don't have to believe in God. This isn't a religious tract. That word is like, it's the most controversial word for no fucking good reason. It's like, forget it. He had to write it for the all, for the creative intelligence of mankind. He couldn't be distracted by, is this going to play on Broadway? Is this too long? What's the time limit? I was just doing that earlier. Should I go 30 minutes or 46 minutes, or what do I need to do? What I need to do is finish what I have to do this morning. I don't need to worry about that bullshit. This is, so that's what he was doing. I don't think Salinger was like alienated from everybody. I mean, I've just seen little bits and pieces. Again, I'm imagining. I'm not a scholar on any of these people. I'm looking at things or whatever, and then I'm responding. I'm trying to imagine. And so the imagination comes from my own experience. I don't think he was alienated. I don't think that he was a loner. I don't think he was odd in any way. I think he wanted to engage the world when it met his standards of engagement. It's like you get to a certain point, and after you've experienced the world and been knocked around a bit, I don't think Randy Rainbow wants to hang out with the guys that bullied him when he was in middle school. I mean, what does he get out of that? They're a bunch of stupid assholes. And there's a lot of stupid assholes out there. But I see that, like, he did a video with Patti LuPone. He did an interview with Barbara Streisand. Whoever his people are, and I'm sure there's a lot of them that nobody knows who they are. It's not about being alone. It's like it's a standard for who you're going to associate with. So which for me was always an issue, because it's like, oh, where are my friends, or where are my people, and it was hard because when you go through those periods where the assholes are being really unjust. It's hard not to think, well, I had, not for long periods of time, but I never stopped believing in myself. A couple times I stopped believing in the world. And then I had some great relationships with people that have saved me from that mistake. Well, okay. Now we can stop. So It's 49 minutes and 24 seconds. Hooray. That's today's episode. All right. Take care. See you next time. Maybe. No, I'm not going to end that way. No. Maybe. I have no doubt about it. That's where you just start running off at the mouth with these niceties and everything. That is the danger of talk. But the good thing about talk is that you can do what I just did and just like, forget that. You self-overhearing. All right. 50 minutes and 4 seconds. All right. Bye.